Good morning, everyone. My name is Kathleen O'Reilly, and I'm the Senior Managing Director of Accenture's management consulting business, serving the communications, media, and technology industries globally. On behalf of Accenture, it is our pleasure and delight to be able to bring to you this morning's opening power panel, the Rockin' Women of Silicon Alley. Silicon Alley is home to New York's bustling technology scene and to many of the trailblazing entrepreneurs from whom you are about to hear. First, let me introduce the moderator of this morning's session, Jessie Draper. Jessie is creator and host of The Valley Girl Show and CEO of Valley Girl, Inc. She has produced and distributed over 250 interviews with some of the greatest minds in business, technology, government, and entertainment. These include Ted Turner, Mark Cuban, Sheryl Sandberg, Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, MC Hammer, and Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google. That's quite the list, isn't it? Valley Girl has been called must-see startup TV by USA Today. And with that, please join me in welcoming Jessie Draper.
But I don't know if I'm supposed to speak in here too. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for such a nice welcome. I'd first like to introduce our panelists. We have, well, first of all, welcome to the WICT Leadership Conference. I'm so excited to be here. So we have an incredible panel today. I mean, I'm humbled to be on this panel. These women are amazing. So Tiffany Dufu, right over here, is the Chief Leadership Officer at Levo League and is a catalyst at large in the world of women's leadership, having raised nearly $20 million towards the cause of women and girls. She was honored by Mattel in 2011 as one of their 10 women to watch. I love Mattel, I love Barbie. And was named by the National Council for Research on Women in 2012 as one of the 30 women making change in the world. Our next panelist is Kristen George, VP of Product at TuneIn, where she's helped the company grow from 5 employees to 90. TuneIn, now the #1 source for live online radio, is available across over 200 connected devices across 230 countries and territories. The TuneIn radio app is ranked in the top 5 of the App Store music category across 82 countries and territories and is one of the world's most downloaded apps. Kay Koplowitz is the founder of USA Networks, the Sci-Fi Channel, and USA Networks International, and created the business model for cable networks by introducing the 2 revenue stream concept, licensing and advertising, which is pretty much how everyone in media makes money, so thank you, Kay. She was chairperson and CEO until the company was sold for $4.5 billion, just a small number, in 1998. She's currently chairman of Koplowitz & Company and Springboard Enterprises. Our final panelist is Sonia Nagar, the co-founder and CEO of Picky, a personalized iPad shopping magazine focused on fashion, beauty, and home goods. Picky is a top 25 app in the catalogs category of the App Store and has been selected by Apple as one of the 10 essential apps in the category. Okay. So this is a pretty rockin' women-oriented panel, and you are all rockin' women for being here today. So let's begin. Okay, there's so much I want to cover. I mean, from what's going on with Justin Bieber right now to how you like to eat your Oreos. I mean, but I think we should probably start with technology, which is something that ties us all together here up here. So the first question I'd like to ask all of you is, how has your life and career been infused by technology, and what drives you to continue to pursue life in this technology world? Who wants to take a crack at it?
I will, because my life is made possible by technology. I am a Gen Xer who is an engaged parent. I have a great partnership. I have a career that thrives my passion and what I care about in the world, which is advancing women and girls. I'm physically fit. I have great relationships with other people in my life, all because of technology and because of what it's allowed me to do. Literally on Friday, I was having an amygdala hijack because I had to be at a conference presenting on Saturday, and I also had volunteered to sell Halloween disco tickets for a community organization. One was in New York, one was in Boston. There was no way that I could be at two places at one time. I literally grabbed my iPhone, I went to TaskRabbit, I got a TaskRabbit to show up at the right time.
Who
you know,
knows?
to
Do
sell.
you guys know what TaskRabbit is?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, it's
it is
gonna
the
change
working
your
mother's angel, halo. Please go to taskrabbit.com. Got someone to sit and sell Halloween tickets, all because of technology.
That's
it's made
amazing.
my life possible. Yeah.
TaskRabbit is a personal assistant service, basically, and you can actually find people who are focused in different industries on it. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Great. While I'm waiting for my coffee to kick in, based on my really late flight last night, technology has enabled me to actually do tons of work on the plane. So when I'm on Virgin America on my flight over here, you know, people are complaining the Wi-Fi doesn't work, Wi-Fi doesn't work. I mean, we are doing work from 10,000 feet in the air. And I think technology has enabled us to travel around the world while still getting the things done that we need to do. Technology also got me here today, which before Google Maps, it was very difficult to get me anywhere. I know Jesse has the same problem.
Directionally challenged.
But not only that, you know, spending my life in content aggregation, technology has just changed the amount of access that we have to the content that we love. And so it just allows us to listen to radio stations from all over the world while we're at the gym, to giving us the ability to work from the plane. So I'm just happy to be here.
Well, I want to say that technology actually influenced my entire life, because I met somebody when I was a college student who spoke to me about geosynchronous orbiting satellites in 1968. I wrote my master's thesis on that subject, and that really was the launch of my career in cable television, because I realized the cable industry really needed, it was a backwater industry at that time, really needed the programming. So technology completely, if I hadn't wandered into a lecture by Arthur C. Clarke, I wouldn't even have been doing what I did. So it was absolutely a serendipitous life changer for me. I was on my way to medical school, so I think I wound up better in satellites. So, yeah. But let me just say that I think technology opens up everything in every business, not just this business, but in every business, because I'm in many different business categories, from software to apparel to food to things on different boards I serve. Technology affects every single business, our whole lifestyle, how we act, and how we can open up the world to the 3 billion people who are still disconnected in this world, who will be coming online. They're going to go from the 15th century to the 21st century in one fell swoop. And this is a fascinating evolution to look at coming at us in the future. And for someone who's been at it since satellites, and I know there were things before satellites, and there were telegraphs and the Pony Express, I suppose. but I think it is one of the most fabulous times. Every day I wake up and I see nothing but opportunity. So I think it's a great time.
That's great. That's great. Sonia, how has technology infused your life?
Yeah, so for me, technology literally pays my bills. So I made a decision very early in my career that I wanted to be a technologist. So I remember in 4th grade, my dad helped me build an electric motor with magnets, and I just kind of fell in love. And so from then on, I studied mechanical engineering, went to work for General Motors in their advanced engineering group. And then when I realized in 2005, 2006, General Motors might not be the best place to build a career anymore, went back to business school, and then after that, found myself at Amazon, where I fell in love with e-commerce and how technology could connect buyers from anywhere with supplies and inventory from a completely different location. So I would say I've had a long love affair with technology, both as now somebody building a company in technology, and even earlier as an engineer, hands down, you know, building products. It's really changed my life and helped me build a career
Don't you come from a line of like 11 engineers
Yes,
or something?
yes. I have 11 engineers in my family. Unfortunately, there was never really a gender question of like, you're a female, you should do something different. So I had a lot of support and great female role models from the generation above me even that were doing phenomenal things in engineering, filing patents, inventing things. So I definitely appreciate that I had a unique upbringing.
That's fantastic. Okay, so we are, here with many people in the cable telecommunications industries. Kay, I know you introduced the concept of licensing and advertising, like I discussed in your bio at USA, and as these revenue streams. What do you feel like is the future of media? And besides advertising, what are some other revenue streams you foresee in the future?
Well, I think we see some of the models, I mean, they have been evolving over, a number of, I remember 1990 saying digital is going to change everything and sort of the ones and zeros that we deal with, and it has. So, I mean, we really, still, the basic model that is in play for cable television and satellite television today is still the basic model, but there are micropayments, licensing, that are out there that are really important. We thought at one time that product placement would be really important, but I think it's receded as its importance to some degree. But there's clear sponsorship. We even have going back to the 50s model of sponsorship of programming. I think that really the integration. Today, you really need to have a multiple, not just 2, not just 3, but 4 different kinds of revenue streams, I think, to really make businesses work and have a 360, a holistic point of view on the content that you create and the business model around that content. So, and I think that mobile is really, I've been saying for years now, mobile are the next new networks, and I truly mean that. I really think from a global perspective, mobile has risen very dramatically. You can just look at what happened to Facebook last year. No mobile advertising, got sort of beat up over it. This year, 43% of their advertising revenue is on mobile. So it's a huge leap, and Twitter, of course, was just out last week with their IPO announcement, and that is a mobile platform primarily. So you see where it's going. It's just finding these new revenue models that fit the different distribution models that are out there.
Kristen, you're in kind of the future of radio, a different medium. What are you seeing working as far as revenue streams for you guys?
Yeah, so our business is primarily mobile, which has been challenging. So sure, the growth is there on the mobile side, but it's not a mature marketplace at all. If you look at us from a revenue perspective, we're just trying to figure out a way to get our mobile revenue up to what we see from an advertising perspective on the web. And then TuneIn's trying to transition the traditional radio online, which has caused us to try to figure out how to get audio ads to transition from traditional radio audio ads to online. It's a $32 billion a year business, $16 billion in the US, and we're trying to figure out how to allow that transition to happen, and it's still so early. So you look at mobile, the CPMs are low. You look at audio ads, I mean, it's even crazier. I mean, the differential between what people are getting for a terrestrial audio ad versus a digital audio ad. So I think that there's a lot left to do there, and I guess that's what makes it so exciting.
I really feel like I see e-commerce coming in as a potential new revenue stream. Sonia, how do you feel about that? Because you're in the kind of e-commerce industry.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there's a large opportunity there. What's interesting is if you broadly define media as competing for attention, no matter what the device is, now media, whether it's cable TV or Twitter, all these things take up mind share for consumers, and everybody's kind of trying to get a piece of that time. And it's very different from 30 years ago when you had your shopping time where you would go and shop in a physical location, and then you had your TV time when you would go and sit on your couch in front of a TV. Now you have second screens, you have all these other distractions. And so you're already starting to see retail companies or e-commerce companies put significant investment into their content. They're hiring magazine editors to help. Some of them are even moving into more video and TV content or YouTube content. And so I think that I see a lot more success for retailers adding content than necessarily content companies adding commerce, at least to date. There have been few companies that have succeeded in moving in that direction, but I do think that it's an interesting revenue model from an affiliate's perspective.
I think you have an example of Burberry, which probably is the most forward-moving content creator for a brand in, let's say, the apparel business that has really gone out and created a lot of content around their brand. And speaking to the emotional connection to the brand, and I think that's where things are changing with the e-commerce model, is that it's not about just advertising that brand or marketing that brand to that loyal customer or would-be loyal customer. It's really how much they are attached to it, and word of mouth among people who are devotees and really love that brand is having a greater impact than we ever really seen before. It's back to sort of word of mouth of movies. It's that kind of connection, I think, that is really important. That's why they all try to get their Facebook, numbers up and their likes up and Instagram, followers, and because they want to have that emotional connection with the brand. And that I think is a big selling point, not just advertising.
You see the same thing with Red Bull.
Yeah.
Like there are a bunch of companies out there that are creating content to try and, Red Bull gives you wings, so they want to support all these upcoming artists, and so they bring content to you to support that brand.
Back another decade, BMW did this, BMW Films did that. I think they were one of the first ones that sort of broke through with, they had major filmmakers make short films about what it meant to be a BMW owner, and it was really very imaginative, and they withdrew their advertising and put it all in these films. And it really created a stir, and I think that was really kind of the genesis of the first real strong, in my memory anyway, change in this type of advertising or affinity for your customer.
You also see it with Lexus. They're bringing in content that's exclusive to Lexus customers in their cars.
Coca-Cola does it in the movie theaters, for example.
There's such a big opportunity in media these days. I think Bethany Frankel really. One of the Real Housewives of New York, who spun off now, has her own talk show. But she started a company on, Bravo, sold it for $120 million, and Bravo did not get one piece of that. So I think media companies are really looking for, new ways to monetize. It's been kind of interesting. Okay, you guys all have very entrepreneurial backgrounds, and I would love to hear, women get less funding than men. It's a fact. It's a sad fact. But how do we change that? And what's your experience with this?
Well, I'll be happy to start because 13 years ago, the world had changed. And 13 years ago, we were in the internet 1.0. It was the late 90s, 2000, and I decided that I wanted to see how more women could get access to private equity. And it was really dreary. Of $104 billion invested in the venture market in 1999, 1.7% went to women. And I said, somebody has to change the picture on this poster, because this is not going to happen again to women, that we're going to be in capital starvation. So I started an organization called Springboard Enterprises to select, train, and present women entrepreneurs to raise capital. And we did that for the first time in January 2000 in Silicon Valley. And not to make a long story, to say we had 350 applications. That was 3 times as many as we thought we would get. We selected 26 companies. They got up on the stage. It was showtime. 22 of those companies got funded. 2 merged their business. 1 sold her business. 1 wasn't funded. And we've never looked back. I wrote a book on it called Bold Women, Big Ideas, because I never wanted women to be pushed out of the marketplace ever again. And since that time, fortunately, we have continued on. We've now brought 537 companies to market. Our companies have raised $6.2 billion.
That's amazing.
You know some of them. If you are a Zipcar user, if you use Constant Contact, these are the kinds of companies that we have. We have a lot of biotech companies. We have a lot of companies in all kinds of technologies. I don't want to be just go on about Springboard, but just to say why. Why did we do it? We did it because women just weren't in the capital market. There was no entry point, no on-ramp. And what we have found over 13 years is you have to build the entire ecosystem around companies. Men have had it for many decades. We just didn't have it. We're relatively new to the marketplace in comparison. And the funders are almost all men. So some of the things you see here in Silicon Alley that relate to e-commerce, relate to content, relate to, guys didn't care about that. They're in quant mathematics. So, you know, and we have, women are exceptional in biotechnology, exceptional. We have half our IPOs are in biotech. So what I'm saying is we had to create the ecosystem around that. And people in the audience here are also part of that ecosystem because corporate champions are very important also for the products and services, the companies that come out of here. So I'll end it there. There's a really wonderful, you know, 537 wonderful stories I could tell so far and climbing.
Yeah, I would love to speak to this as well because, I mean, obviously if there were more Kay Koplovitz in the world, we would be able to have more women who were running companies and more women entrepreneurs. So I really applaud you for that and for all of that work and for having done it so long. From my vantage point, as someone who has spent, you know, most of my career training and coaching and supporting women in advancing their leadership, we also want to encourage women to lean in. I'm also on the launch team for Lean In, so there's a shameless plug for that. But one of the things that we found over and over again is that there are assets that women possess that help them in elevating their career and accelerating their leadership. And one of the things that I observed, and one of them, and I volunteered to be a coach for some women who were presenting for Golden Seeds, for example, is that, you know, men tend to round up where women tend to round down. And I want to mention that because we want to make sure that we're not our own barriers to our success. But what I found over and over again is, and it starts very young, I have a 7-year-old son who, you know, came up to me not that long ago, plopped himself down on my lap and said, "Hey mom, I can run faster than you." And I said, "No, you can't." I said, "I've got longer legs than you. I've been running longer than you have." And he was like, "Oh, mom," he was like, "we can go outside right now and race, and I would beat you." And, you know, it's really cute now, but to be honest, I've researched this and I've seen it time and time again. 30 years from now, my Kofi will be at a company, or he'll be deciding, I want to run a company. And there'll be 10 qualifications that you need in order to go for it. He'll have 2, and he'll be like, "It's mine, I'm going to go for it." My daughter, on the other hand, is going to have 8 out of 10, and she's going to be like, "Oh, mom, I'm not quite sure I should go for it." Go for it. You are already just, if not more qualified, oftentimes more qualified. There is an ecosystem of people who are here to support you. Kay is part of that. We're all part of that. Levo League is part of that. And so there are a lot of resources for women now who want to take that step and who are courageous as these women up here and really can help you move it forward. So let us not get in our own way as well.
I'll speak to that too, because the pain and agony of fundraising is still very near and dear to me. I just did it last year. And I would say,
Start over.
Yeah, I know, it never ends. It never ends. That's what nobody tells you when you get into it. But I would say most investors, male or female, they invest based on pattern recognition. And unfortunately, there are more males that have succeeded in technology thus far, which creates this vicious cycle of how do you break in. So one of the great things that's happening now is thanks to organizations like Springboard and Levo League that are promoting women, more women are succeeding, and there actually are a fair number of examples that you can point to of senior women in technology or CEOs of technology companies that are female. And I think one thing that everybody here can help with is promoting and making those women more visible. Because I find, for some of the reasons you spoke to, when you're tapped to do a TV interview or appear as a technology expert, a lot of times we'll hold ourselves back. I've had female CEO founders call me and be like, "Oh, you know, I've been tapped for this thing, but I don't know if I'm a technology expert. I mean, yeah, I'm a CEO of a technology company, but I don't know if I'm prepared to go on TV and, you know, speak as an expert." And it's funny because, you know, then I'll see who ends up, you know, doing the spot or ending up as the technology commentator, and you look at their background, I'm like, "You have an engineering degree, you know, you went to Stanford, like, I don't know what you're waiting for." So I think part of it is, you know, creating female success stories that we can all look up to and people we can emulate, and that investors can look to and say, all right, if I decide to go in on this deal, there's precedent here. And then the second piece is, how do you make those patterns more visible? And that's something that I think everybody in the room can help with.
I think everybody's talking about the same thing in that women, the first thing we teach at Springboard to our companies, our CEOs, is learn to like the sound of your own voice. You really have to trust your own values, your core values, what you're presenting, and hear the sound of your own voice so that you can believe it, so others will believe you. It's authenticity and the confidence to have authenticity and the sound of your own voice. Don't be overspoken by other people. Project yourself well. I mean, these are very basic things that women, I hate to say it, but generalization, what you're just saying up here, women have to learn to love the sound of their own voice the way your son does, and that's really one of the key things that we have to teach presenters who are presenting primarily to a lot of men, but we have to talk to them, not be men, but be ourselves, but learn to love the sound of your own voice, that you really trust what you're saying, that you are authentic and you believe it. That's how and people invest in people first, and then in businesses. Believe me.
That was a great example, Sonia, because I do feel like, not to discredit men, but I do feel like men, it's like, it doesn't matter if they're a tech expert, they have that confidence. And I don't know if it's a confidence thing or what, but they would definitely go commentate. I don't mean to get on my soapbox. So I was wondering I would like to hear what percentage of women to men work at your past or present company, and how has that affected you now or in the past?
I'll go. So for us, it's about 20%, and I have
female or
20% female. And I have a little bit of a different perspective as somebody who is always trying to hire female engineers and female product people. I think for me, the issue comes all down to supply. So if you look at engineering school and you go back to college, so Sonia, I'm sure you can talk about this too, but if I look at my, going to engineering school as an undergrad, how many women were there? And then going to, get my master's in engineering, how many women were there? And then if I look in my field, which is started out in engineering and then product, how many women are there? And so I've been with my company for 3 years, and I tried forever to hire a woman. And for me, what was really hard is the candidates come in, and I'm looking for an amazing person to add to the team, and it's like 1 in 100 that I meet a woman that walks in the door first, and then through that pool, you want to find the best candidate. So I think one of the hard parts is just how do we get women into the technology track in general, and then once we get women into the technology track, then we can start looking at how can we, hire really great women in technology.
I think people, it's true, we need more women in STEM. And a lot of us work with organizations that are, Girls Who Code, Black Girls Code, these sorts of organizations, Boys and Girls Clubs. I mean, there are a lot of organizations now, Empower, all trying to encourage students and women, young girls to be in technology. The life sciences, there are a lot of women in medical school, at least half the medical school class. So that's not so much the problem, it's in the technology and the coding side of it. But I think we have to remember that businesses, while you want the technology knowledge, a lot of tech companies are not run by people who are engineers or coders or there are lots of very prominent jobs, sales jobs, distribution jobs, these sorts of things. You have to understand what the technology is doing, but you don't have to be the one that creates it. So, I mean, you have to think holistically about these companies. So yes, more people, more women in STEM-related technology would be helpful to choose from, but it's not necessary to run a company in technology like you're saying. You don't have to be a coder yourself to do it. Just because Marissa's a coder doesn't mean everybody else to be one.
So when I started my career at General Motors, that was probably the worst male to female ratio. I was in the advanced engineering group, mostly PhD. So by the time people get to the PhD funnel, it's like nobody's left.
I love that we have 2 female engineers on the panel. That's pretty amazing.
Although I feel like
It's great.
So that was like 5% women. There was like 3 women out of roughly 100 people in the group. And then Amazon was better. My current company were 30% women. We were almost 20. I was like 1 woman. I had 2 co-founders who were technical, front-end engineer who's a dude, a UX designer who was also a guy for a while, like for the first 5 months of the company. So again, we had a pipeline problem. Not enough females applied. The needs we had as a very small technical startup were people who could be building things in the earliest days. Now we've expanded, and so we have more women, but there's definitely a pipeline problem.
So Levo probably has a completely different kind of ratio. What percentage of Levo League is women?
Yeah, we're probably 80% women. I think the important thing to note that is that our dev team is 50% women. So there is absolutely a pipeline issue. But I also just want to say, because we always talk about getting more women into leadership, which, by the way, the case for that is that more diversity in leadership leads to better innovation and outcomes for all of us, although some of us are feminists and we just think the world would be a better place if more women were in charge. There actually is, a business case and a rationale for why it's really important to do that. And I think that if you listen to men at the very highest levels of leadership, they may say that there is a pipeline issue, and there is. And I've worked for a long time. We were just talking about Seattle Girls School, which is a school that focuses on math, science, and technology, and getting girls really early. I also think it's really important for us to prioritize diversity and to really go out and find, and it means that we have to be proactive and work harder to identify where would those women be, where can we find them, how can we recruit them, what do they care about when it comes to the workplace, and how can we really foster a place where they really feel like they can bring their full selves to the table. But it absolutely is possible.
So, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, I've heard of some schools that are now treating programming or coding as a language, which it actually is like learning a language. It's not as difficult or as scary or as technical as it sounds.
That's great.
And I think that if you change the context and the way you talk about coding, I think a lot more women would be interested in it. And while I don't think you need to be a programmer to build a technology company, it certainly helps in being able to attract and retain and even evaluate whether somebody is a good engineer or technical co-founder. Because I think that one of the things that really helped me early on in getting not only 1, but 2 technical co-founders on board with a women's lifestyle company was the fact that I had programmed before, and so they knew that I would understand and be a good partner, I guess, in helping determine the direction of the company.
So okay, there's this new kind of age and type of women coming into the workplace now, this Generation Y women. Who are they? What makes them different? And I'd love for you to speak to this, Tiffany.
Oh, sure. So I have spent a great deal of my time recently focused on Gen Y, women in particular, and I hedge my bet on Gen Y, men and women, because it's the first generation of people who really expect that their career will align and should be a vehicle for their ability to create impact in the world. Oftentimes that's misinterpreted as a sense of entitlement, but trust me, if you look deeper, it's really that they don't understand how making copies is going to change the world. I've got to be the CEO to do that, right? So if you can really foster a place where they understand the connection between the two, it'll be fantastic. The other reason why I'm really appreciating Gen Y is because I am in the midst of an experiment with the future of what the world will look like when they're leading, because I work for a company that's run by Gen Y. And recently I had a conversation with our CEO, and it was a role conversation where we were talking about results, and I'm very used to being in an environment where you have to deliver results. But she said that she had one concern, and I said, well, what is your concern? I'm having an amygdala hijack already. And she says, I don't think that you get enough sleep. And I was a little bit taken back. Of course, we all wear these up bands in my office, which is a wellness band that helps you record the amount of steps that you take and the amount of sleep that you get. And I don't get very much sleep, but I haven't gotten very much sleep ever since I brought my son home from, the hospital. Like, who really does? And as long as I do my job and I achieve really great results, I've done great thus far. No boss has ever been concerned about how much sleep that I get. But she wanted to have a conversation about sustainability and about the fact that we were basically trying to change the world at Levo League by getting women to elevate their careers, and that she wanted all of her senior executives to be a model for how you do that in a sustainable way. And she offered a number of solutions. She acknowledged that I was the only person in the company that had small children, and that if we needed to turn the conference room next to my space into a nap room, I should feel free to take naps during the day. But somehow we needed to figure out a way for me to get more sleep. And I'll tell you, I pushed back a lot in the beginning, but I eventually did figure out a way to do a lot of the work that we do at night, mommies do at night, to do more of that during the day. I started getting more sleep. I realized that I've been exhausted for 10 years. And it really has changed my life. So I just have a lot of faith in the way Gen Y works and lives, and I actually believe that the world will be better when they're in charge.
And when we get more sleep, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we get more sleep.
That's fantastic. Well, before we open it up to Q&A, I would love all of you to give one piece of advice to women in the workplace and for people who would like to hold a role like you one day.
Okay, well, I'll start. I think that it's exceptionally important to build out your own human capital network, to seek out those advisors, those people that you admire, that have attributes that you would like to emulate, and really create a connection with them before you ask them to do something for you. It's really important to give before you get. And so look for people that you think that really could add value, but what can you add for them? What can you offer them? And establish that human capital network, because in life and in business, that network is extremely important to your success.
I love that. Give before you get. Sonia?
I think one of the biggest learnings for me in stepping out and doing something entrepreneurial is having confidence and finding my own voice. I think a lot of the things that Kay spoke about, that they work with entrepreneurs during Springboard on, as well as having to check 20 boxes before you apply for a job where you need to check 10. I think the biggest thing I would encourage people to do is to have confidence and to find their own voice and be authentic and not be afraid to take risks.
That's great.
I would suggest that people find something that they're absolutely passionate about and just follow that passion. If I look at the leaders that I am most inspired by, they probably don't get very much sleep, just like you. But they just found something that is their ice cream in life, and they just follow that passion and go after it. And I think that that's sort of the best way to lead and just show people that you are there and you're going to win.
That just made me want ice cream really bad.
It's something we talk about at work. What's the ice cream? What's the ice cream?
Well, I will share something from my parents. My mom found out that she was pregnant with me when she was 19 years old. My parents were in Watts, LA at the time. It was the mid-1970s, and it was a rough place and a rough time. My mom convinced my dad to join the Army because she really felt like she wanted to get out of Watts, and it was hard. My dad is one of 13 children. My parents obliterated a very vicious cycle of poverty and addiction and violence in one generation based off of one simple truth, and that's my advice to you, which is that if you want something that you've never had before, you're going to have to do something that you've never done before in order to get it.
That is an amazing piece of advice. Great piece of advice. Well, with that, I would love to open it up to Q&A. So if you have a question for one of these lovely women up here, stand, smile, introduce yourself, and ask your question. Oh, it's right. Are we going up here? Great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Simon Applebaum. I'm the producer and host of Tomorrow Will Be Televised. It's the radio show that covers television on Blog Talk Radio. And like Alex Wagner, I also keep asking. I keep asking about how are we going to get the future of television, the next generation of television, off the ground. There are women in this city, probably in this audience, in this country, that want to get new television networks, they want to get new television programming, technology, smart TV apps, you name the whole gamut, off the ground. And right now they're facing two options to get them off the ground. They're facing a venture capital, an angel investor, an incubator, an accelerated community that, with very rare exceptions, is turning the other cheek on the next generation of television. They're also facing a crowdfunding movement, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and the equity crowdfund that's starting to happen through the Securities Exchange Commission under the Jobs Act passed by President Obama last year. That might be the way to get it off the ground. How do we get the VCs, et cetera, to get off their butts and start funding television? Just do it like Nike. And if they don't do it, is crowdfunding the way to go?
Well, I mean, it's an area that I work in, so I'll comment about it. First of all, generally speaking, Simon, you're absolutely right. Venture capitalists aren't interested in television networks in the beginning. They're not interested in funding production. They're not interested in something that hasn't been a great interest to them. If it's a breakthrough technology that they're using, they might do it. So you make your studios and things like that, which are not profitable yet, I don't think, and things like that, mobile video, you can get funding for something like that. But you're talking about television networks? I don't know. Very hard to break in because of the consolidation in the industry. However, if you want to be on broadband, possible, but revenues are really slow to come. Crowdfunding is not possible yet, in spite of the Job Act. You have, technically, crowdfunding is not approved yet. Investing from accredited investors is possible now to advertise. So you can go online, and if you want to start a network, try to attract people to the idea that you have for the network, and offer it up and see if accredited investors will sign up to back you. Accredited investor is a person that has a net worth of at least $1 million outside of their residence, at least $200,000 a year in annual revenue for the last 2 years, or $300,000 as a couple. If you qualify as that, you can sign up and invest. So there's others like Circle Up, Funders Club, Angel List. They all have opportunities for people to sign up to fund. So you could go that route today. So that kind of answers that question. But generally speaking, venture capitalists are looking for disruptive technologies, real breakthroughs, and a television network doesn't quite meet their standard, I don't think, for doing that. I haven't seen much of it.
You need those 4 revenue sources that you were talking about. Okay, one more, or another question, anyone? Let's get a lady up here. Hello.
Hi, my name is Melissa Lissinger. I work at WICT Networks. And I have a question for you ladies about getting women on boards. I know Tiffany mentioned that. What are your ideas to increase the number of women on boards in the U.S.?
She asked how do we increase the number of women on boards in the U.S.?
Well, Kate could say a lot about that. I will just say I think that it's upending term limits. And adding them. I think that part of the challenge with getting more women on boards is that you have people on boards for such a long time. And the places in the world, not in the US obviously, where they have succeeded in getting more women on boards are all in places where they've needed to open up the pipeline to get more women in because of term limits. So that's just one.
17% of the board seats in Fortune 500 companies are held by women today in the United States, but there are many countries that exceed that. Finland started it Norway started it back with Norway started it with their declaration as a requirement that 40% of the board seats be held by women. They did that in 2003, and they do have 40% of the board seats filled by women today. And the Scandinavian countries all exceed by some measure what we're doing in the United States. Some of them have quotas, some of them have goals, like the UK has a 30% goal. But you're absolutely right. There are factors that are prevailing against us. Age limits are getting older. Boards are going up to 75 years for members of the board on for many companies, no term limits, and a decreasing number of public boards. And what we need to do is not focus only on the Fortune 500, but on the Russell 3000. There are a lot of small and mid-cap public companies that have board members that women are highly qualified for You get your creds, their credentials for being on a public board, even if it's a small cap public company. And the Jobs Act that was mentioned before is making it easier for smaller companies in the IPO process, which is in effect and has been in effect this last year, will create more opportunities. So we need to focus on the areas where more board members are needed. There is no lack of people in the pipeline. Believe me, there are legions of qualified women and minorities that can serve on these boards. We need to show us, throw a spotlight on where those opportunities are and get those people out in front of the boards. That's what's really needed. And those of us who serve on boards, and I've been on public boards for more than 25 years, we have to speak up and say, in every single, looking for candidates for boards, for every slate, we need to see qualified women and minorities presented in great numbers, and not just one person of a slate of 10, but 50% of those members should be women and minorities who we can actually choose from too. So that's part of the process. It's really, we've got to push, and we got to continue to push.
There's an organization called the 30% Coalition that's made up of a number of other organizations that are working on that issue. You should absolutely learn more about them.
Yeah, I know there's also Blue Steps too if you're looking to get on a board yourself, and that helps you as well. Okay, another question right here. We have money.
My name is Devi Ramachandran. I am a technologist and a director of technology at Turner Broadcasting. I have two questions actually. My first question is for Sonia. What was your first aha moment after you started your company? And if you'd like to share that with us. And my next question is for Tiffany. I'd like to know how you managed to be in New York and Boston at the same time.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second question.
How were you in New York and Boston at the same time?
Oh, yes.
So my first aha moment was very early on. It was literally me and my co-founder, Ryan, who I initially started with. We were working out of the club room in my apartment for 4 months, and we built this prototype, this very small website, and we put it up, and we were doing all these different tweaks and testing. But then there was one day where we'd done some tweaks, and we had 20,000 people come through the site in one day, which at the time we were like, oh my gosh, people are, it's more than me and my mom checking out my site. So that was kind of the first aha moment, was just building. I mean, we did a lot of testing before putting anything out there, before doing the TechStars program, and well before raising funding. But it was, finding that people beyond my immediate circle of friends were finding the site and were using it that got us excited.
Yes, and sorry if I didn't explain, I wasn't physically in 2 places at once. I was just represented in 2 places at once. I hired a TaskRabbit who sat and sold tickets for 4 hours for me on Saturday in New York while I was in Boston.
Okay, I think we have time for 2 more. One right here.
Hi, Anvan Nguyen with HBO. A few of you have mentioned about the pipeline and the lack of having women in more technical fields. So what can we do to increase more girls in math and science?
Wow. I think the 2 engineers should speak to this, and how, how were you encouraged?
Yeah, go first. You can go first.
Oh, great. I think there's a lot we can do. I think the first is having female role models that come from a technology background. I know I look at Marissa and just think she's the most fabulous human being on the planet. And she is a technologist, and she has done amazing things. Now she's a working mother. The things that she juggles in her life are just incredible to me. So I think we need to have more people who are just, out there, winning in this technology field. I think that that's one way. Role models. All right, you're up.
Yeah, so I think visibility is definitely a big piece of it. So not only with panels like this are great, and panels at conferences generally speaking are great. I'd love if it was not just the women. If there's a mixed men in cable TV conference. I think I just broke my mic with that. But I think it's, you know, everything from the role models we put on TV or the people who are interviewed in the news. Like, there's a lot of room for beyond just small, you know, conferences that have a limited reach. Media companies have such a great reach. So not always having, you know, the geeky guy coding and showing that the girl in heels can also code and be the sexy scientist or whatever. So I think there's definitely a visibility problem that helps.
You're making a good point, because if you watch CNBC, or I watch it when I work out in the morning, but they have a sort of a disruptor series that they occasionally do on there, and it's always guys. Yeah. It's always guys. Like, I don't think I've seen one woman on it yet. Maybe they have. I don't see every one of them, so I'm not saying they never have women on it, but it's always the geeky guys who are.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot.
And that's a big, you're right about the media coverage would help a lot.
Great. We have time for one last question. Right over here. Sorry, I can't see.
Hi. Marsha G. I'm from Sudden Link. You talked about the next generation of women and how you believe that they will know how to do it better, or maybe different. Why is that? Is it because our mothers paved the way and we watched them figure it out, or is it because our mothers paved the way and we don't want to do what they did? Because I would love to get 8 hours of sleep on a night that's not a weekend. You know, what about that generation makes them understand? Is it because we broke the ceiling? Is it what is it? And how do we still take advantage of that generation? Because the message that they have for us is still very valuable, and I feel like they figured it out. So we need to still take advantage of them as additional generations come up.
Mm-hmm. So there's so many things that I could say. I mean, the first thing is that there have been a number of times when I'm talking to a young woman and she's talking about the women who have come before her, particularly when she works in a large company. And I'll often hear the comment, I don't want to do what she had to do in order to get where she is. And I think the most important wording there is what she had to do. I think that's important because there isn't judgment. There's this sense of, at whatever time that you're born, you know, in this world, that and in your journey, you do what you need to do in order to get to the next level. And that there actually is a certain level of respect for women who did not have nearly the number of choices and the number of options that we now do because of the path that they set and because of what they did for us. I mean, we are all just the cumulative investment of a lot of people. And so I think that part of the ambitiousness and part of the expectation that we can and we will do it differently comes from this sense of teaching them that we can do anything, you can be anything, all you need to do is follow your passion. Although why we told them that, I'm not sure, because even baby boomers don't know what their passion is often. It's very hard actually to find your passion. But I think that there is just it's the plethora of choices. Whenever you have more choices, you have more privilege. But whenever you have more privilege, you also have more responsibility. So the flip side of that is really helping this generation understand the level of responsibility that they have to contribute and to give back, which many of them are fulfilling, and also to help them with higher levels of resiliency. So it's also a generation on the flip side who hasn't had a lot of practice failing publicly, and is often not as likely to take the kind of risks that we're talking about. So I think there's a lot to be learned, but those are some of the reasons why I think that I'm excited about what the future holds.
Well, that was great. And with that, we need to conclude for the next session. So thank you all. On behalf of WICT, thank you all for coming. Can we have one last round of applause for our amazing panel? And thank you to our sponsor, Accenture. And with that, I would love for all of you to turn